She had an interesting POV that we should kill the case study. And maybe she wasn't that direct about it, but I think her point is
she did. That's exactly what she said.
There you go. Yeah.
100% agree. We should call them. And I actually think it gives an unfair advantage to the bigger shops. You come to work every day at Amazon proving yourself. Australians swear a lot. We don't even know that we do. Let the creatives be a little bit peculiar. I love when a creative's a bit nervous. I like when they're sweating. It means they care.
Today on Second Wind, we have an absolute legend, Jo Shoesmith. Jo started her career in Australia. She became the first female chief creative officer in Campbell Ewald's history. Then went inside Amazon to lead creative across one of the largest, most complicated companies on earth. And if global CCO at Amazon wasn't impressive enough, good news. She's just been promoted to global chief brand officer. This is Jo Shoesmith.
Jo, thank you for joining us. You've moved from creative into leading brand, basically. What's, the difference between the two?
Yeah, it's interesting. But when I think about the distinction, I was very much responsible for making the great work and building what the brand looked like out in the world and to customers and the craft, and being deep in the details of the craft of the production and the work and getting the strategy right and all of those pieces. I really love this much more 360 point of view where I get to be much further upstream and ultimately impact what the creative ends up being, but you get to make decisions around what's the right portfolio investment, what's our media strategy, is the work getting to the right eyeballs, how does the whole machine work so that we can make sure that we have enough time to execute really amazing work. Because when you think about being on the end of that process, we're often at the mercy of things moving and moving and moving and moving. And I know the consequences of every delay in a decision and what that means for the product that we put out into the world. And so helping people move fast, making those decisions, being in meetings where, I'm in meetings with the economists, thinking about what the world's going to look like in 3 years' time. That's so fascinating as a creative person with such a strong sense of curiosity. So I've got this newness of a learning curve, which is amazing, but also an ability to just be at the table, be much further upstream in decisions that will ultimately have an enormous impact on how good the work is.
You said that it was quite a rigorous process for the new role. What did you have to prove before Amazon trusted you with this broader remit?
Yeah, a lot of things. You come to work every day at Amazon proving yourself. I think there's very much this expectation that what are you doing today? What are you doing this week? I think a lot of companies can milestone, or you've done one great thing and it can hold you up for 3 years. Amazon is what are you doing now? How are you proving yourself every day? And I think the people that succeed here come to work every day going, I have a point to prove today. And so that sense of proving your role never ends. I think I was in this seat as an interim lead, and so you are kind of job interviewing every single day that you turn up to work. But I did go through the formal loop process, which is Amazon's interview process, where you meet for 45 minutes with 7 different people, many of whom are not from your background or practice. They can be from different parts of the organization, and they have different leadership principles that they talk to you about. And you have to have real, tangible examples of how you disagreed and committed, or how you had a bias for action. And so I think that was it really helped me feel like I stepped into the role earning it, and that I competed in the right way against other people who had this job before me. I wasn't just grandfathered in. I had to make sure that I was going to have a meaningful impact. And I learned a lot out of the process as well. I got to meet with people I wouldn't normally meet with. That's the beauty of that process, is if you're interviewing, you get a real sense of Amazon by meeting 7 people who come from different parts of the team. So you should think of it as you're interviewing them, because not that many companies will give you that broad perspective, but also gave me an opportunity to do my homework, to really think about my qualifications for this job and what are the kind of things that I would want to do coming into this seat. It gives you a really good how should this look like? What would I change moment?
How many times did you do the problem, solution, impact? Because when you said that to me the first time, I can't tell you how many people I've told that to. And I think for creative people to have such a simple framework to talk about what they do is super helpful.
I think people do, especially creatives that have done the loop process, tell me they'll never interview the same way again, because I tell everyone, do your homework, come prepared. I mean, we're so used to as creatives just going, well, I won that or I did that. here's the
You
work,
see?
and he's like, here's the book,
Mic
and
drop.
it's
Yeah.
off and just drop it. But
It was
I
all
think-
me.
it was all me. And just me. Yes,
Yeah.
it was all of that. But I think when you force yourself to say, what problem was I solving?
Mm.
So what was the brief? Then what action did I take? What was the work that I did? And then what impact did it actually have? It really changes the examples that you use in a meeting. And you're often, and at a very senior level, when you're interviewing for a job, you're not interviewing with just the ECD or the CD. You're interviewing with business leaders. You're interviewing with people who want to know that stuff, who actually are really interested in the impact that your work is having. And it's super simple. Yeah, like, what'd you do? What was the problem? What did you make? What was the impact of it is a really good thing to remember as you walk into any interview.
And what have you let go of that you're really glad to have taken that hat off and to,
Probably
someone
not
else
enough.
has to wear that now?
My team will tell you probably not enough. I'm trying.
She's
I'm
wearing
being very
17
self-aware.
hats.
I'm very self-aware, and it comes completely from just the love of the process and all of the steps in it. But I really am, many people gave me sink or swim opportunities of a lot more ownership than I probably deserved in my career at different points. And I'm really trying to give people a lot more autonomy and ownership of their piece. And I'm really pushing, this is an opportunity for me to teach people to have a strong opinion and helping move that next generation up and teach them the things that I've felt helped me propel myself forward, and making sure that they don't just share their work with me, but they share their opinion with me, and being open to being wrong and letting them debate, and still being the kind of leader that they're not terrified of and can have a real conversation with and debate things with me, but give them that expectation that I need them to be owners of decisions.
You've got this massive new title, new role, within a huge American company, but you come from the land down under. Take us back to, what was happening in your life when you realized that, it was time to leave, it was time to move on.
Yeah, it's a good question. I see a similarity between Brazilian creatives and Australian creatives because you kind of don't have huge budgets. You can't hide behind a budget you have to have a great idea, and you often have to wear 20 different hats, which makes you a bit of a Swiss Army knife. But I definitely kind of got to a point where, complacency kills creativity. And I think we should always be putting ourselves in positions where we're uncomfortable and out of our depth. And I think even though Australia and America might seem very similar on the surface, moving to a new country where I didn't have my network of creative people that I'd either gone through school with or who had mentored me to throw myself into that and have to start again at that point and work on brands like NASCAR and college football and things that I knew.
Love it.
And have that wonderful learning curve, the curiosity.
And that's a deep dive into American culture, NASCAR,
yes.
Crumbs.
Yes. And you think you know it. All the briefs I got were like John Deere. I was working for a lot of companies in the Midwest. And so I was working on a lot of very American companies, Harley Davidson. And so I got really quickly immersed in the American psyche and learned what this thing called tailgating was. And it really fed that thing that I think creatives always need is to have enough information about a lot of things to be dangerous.
First female CCO in Campbell eWorld's history. What's the part of the story nobody knows?
When that headline came out, which is great when an announcement happens and press happens around it, I think the one thing I really cringed about was that it said first female. And I really hope we get to a point where we actually don't have to say first female as women go into these roles, and that it's much more about the skills and the ability and the talent that someone has who has earned that, and that we can remove gender from the announcement. And I know it was meaningful because of the heritage of the company. It's a Detroit car agency, but that's the mission, isn't it? That we don't have to reference someone's gender in an announcement for any role.
That would be nice.
When was it? How long ago was it?
Gosh, 120 years ago.
Fair enough. It was the Victorian age.
So I've been at Amazon for nearly 7 years, and I was there for 5 years. So 12 years ago.
Yeah, but still, it's only
like
12 years ago.
But even in women's sports, it's why is it not just sport? We don't say men's sport, we say women's sport. And so I do think there is this, it's an important shift that is beginning to happen now, but that still happens enough that we should be, I hope, starting to be very mindful of it.
Yeah, we talked to Susan recently, and she was like, at one point, she was the only female CCO of a known agency in the US. And she was like really kind of joking about the pressure of like, if I fuck this up, like we're going to set
She
back
sets back
women
she
like
sets
50
back
years
feminism.
or something.
I know,
Like,
it puts a lot of pressure on. I actually worked for Susan when she came to Leo Burnett. That's when I just joined Leo Burnett in Chicago, and she came into that role as the New Yorker coming to Chicago, which I learnt later, that whole second city
The dynamic,
competitiveness between Chicago and New York, but also coming into that seat. It was a lot of pressure, and she was new in town, and there'd been a lot of promoting internal people to the next person in that seat. So there was a lot to be learned in how she elegantly navigated that. I very much was watching.
What were you learning from someone like Susan
She
Credle?
was just really thoughtful. I think a lot of people come in with a 2-year plan saying I have to change everything, and the clock is ticking on how much I have to do now because I'm thinking about the next role. And Susan came in and really assessed everything. She got to know all the clients. She knew she didn't take on every battle, but she chose the right brands that were of a big size where there was a good opportunity to improve the work. I worked on all states, so I really benefited from her coming in, and she built a strong relationship first with the clients. She didn't come in and start shoving work down their throat and come in like a salesperson. She actually started from a place of trust and relationship and listening, and did that with some really key clients. And you see the work that was the result of that work was things like Mean Stinks and Like a Girl and Mayhem. And they were on our biggest clients, which she took on first. And she built really strong relationships so that when she had to go in and have those strong debates around making sure that the work was what we hoped it would be, she had a lot of trust to lean back on. And it taught me a lot about building relationships before and not selling. She's not selly in the way that she operates. She's just very smart about the way she presents an argument with conviction.
You've talked about sort of like knowing the stock price. I think Susan sort of like
she said that to me, to many of us early on, was, understand how your clients make money. Yeah. Understand what their stock price is, know the business of their business, and that will give you an understanding of what's keeping them up at night, and that will inform you making the right kind of choices about the work that's driven by solving those business problems. And she definitely is I hadn't encountered that, a really business first CCO who talked about the business of the business. Probably what took me brands, to be honest.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because I got fascinated with that part of it. It's like understanding how the business works and understanding how our client makes money, and then and again the tumultuous the stock price and what the pressures that are on them on a daily basis makes you walk into a meeting way more empathetic and understanding, and not assuming.
Are there key differences to the way that you do business in Australia and the way you do business in America?
I think we're definitely no jargon Australians, right? Like, we just like to get to it. We're quite direct. We're very straightforward. And then we also are really good at keeping things simple, like really cutting to what the point is. I think you get a lot of great briefs out of Australian strategists and British strategists because they have this way of cutting through all the noise and getting to the point really quickly. So I think, to me, simplification has been a big one. I often also say, we tend to over-intellectualize a little bit here, and it becomes, I like to call it, too much college, not enough high school. And we make things so complicated that people aren't going to understand it in the world. And so I think that is the superpower of most of the Australian creatives and creatives in any capacity that come to other countries, is we have an ability to very quickly get to the point and very quickly cut to the chase and really avoid the jargon and the marketing speak and keep it very plain spoken and simple.
That can be tricky in the Midwest, though. It's a little culture clash there, right?
Well, it was, but then I think it's appreciated. I think I think that's another reason there's so many Australians working in America, because at first I think it can be quite shocking that we're quite direct. But then I think once you get used to it, people are like, oh, okay, we're getting to the point quicker, and you can see the benefit of it. But at first I use some probably language that people don't use in America.
Like what? Talk us through it. Talk us through it.
Swear a lot. We don't even know that we do. And so you have to you don't notice it until the room goes quiet. And so I do think there's just some cultural things that you shift a little bit. But I don't think I've been in America now for 20 odd years, and I've still got my accent. I still think it's really important to be true to the things that I brought with me and the uniqueness that you bring with you when you come from a different country, to learn, but not chameleon and become someone completely different, because people are hiring you because you bring a different perspective. And the best creative departments are made up of people from all different places. That's what my team has. It's the composition is from all over the world.
Where do you think your taste leans towards Australian?
Humour is a big part of Australian marketing and how we break through. And I would say, doing campaigns like Mayhem and things that were very grounded in humour. A lot of the work we did, like 5-star reviews with Adam and Benedict, and I think we have a good appreciation of humour in Australia. But I also think an honesty, again, that's a cultural thing. We can't help ourselves. Probably hurts us sometimes. I wish I'd written the line, "The truth told well," because I reference that as well a lot. I think finding that really interesting truth and telling it in a really compelling way is very much how most of my favourite Australian work it stands out. So I do think just taking those truths, finding interesting ways to tell them, and checking ourselves. Like, I think we have to call BS on ourselves sometimes. Like we sometimes have with ideas where we don't have permission to tell that story, or we'd love to tell that story, but it's outside of our sphere and it doesn't really tell you anything about us, and that's not true. And so I think that Australian honesty to a fault starts to really show itself in the work.
Coming out of Cannes, I think a lot of people are exposed to ideas that they would never have seen in their day-to-day from all over the world. What's the last piece of work that really made you jealous?
I'm officially a World Cup fan. Probably not a football fan, but I'm officially. I've
probably not for Australia.
Been watching all kinds of World Cup moments, but seeing the World Cup off the back of the basketball and being kind of in this sports moment of all this. I mean, I think we've seen some of our best marketing between the playoffs and the World Cup going back to back, and it's actually raising the bar in an amazing way. It'll be really interesting to see the award season next year, because so much of that work is going to be competing against each other. But the Nike Widen ad that came on right after the win, right, the first ad break. The first ad break, I was sitting in my living room with a bunch of other people, not advertising people, who tend to use that as a bathroom break to when the ads come on. But when that Nike ad came on and the song came on, and the room just went quiet. And so to actually experience the real-time nature of the placement of that ad off the back of such a heightened emotion and moment, and how it just struck such the right chord, to me, that's been a clear winner of all of the work that I've seen. And then I also have to give props to David Beckham's agent. Of how many spots in the World Cup he's been in. There's no category complex. He's in every category. It's banking. Really bizarre, I think. It's amazing, though. Like, talk about someone should get a bonus this year, because it's David Beckham.
I think David Beckham's the World Cup winner, don't you think?
I think he is the winner of the World Cup. And look, they're not all created equal. Some of them are better than others. But it's a little bit of a lesson in that as well, actually, around really thinking about choosing talent based on the idea, not necessarily the context.
And what are you most proud of achieving to date at Amazon? If you're following that process, what were your biggest examples that landed every single time?
I think rebuilding the brand architecture and the brand design expression for the global company was an amazing undertaking, because the problem we identified, if I'm going to do the problem and the action and the solution, was we just grew so fast, and we have so much autonomy to just make and build, because if you want to scale quickly, we can't bog ourselves down with layers and have cumbersome processes to make things move as we're building new experiences. And then as you're growing around the world so quickly, you can imagine that you just end up in a very fragmented place. Like, your brand shows up very differently, not by anyone's fault, but just because you're moving really fast and growing really fast. And so taking a moment to say, we want to articulate in a doc our brand architecture and align on that, and then build a design system that can travel the globe, is in every language, that gives us a foundational, recognizable visual point of view, that it somewhat operates as freedom in a framework. Like, the framework and the foundation of the brand is consistent, but then we can create ideas that work really well for Japan and speak to the Japanese customer, or that make a lot of sense in Poland. If we just gives you those opportunities to flex, because you've got this foundational layer. And that was a big process, as you can imagine, with the amount of verticals that we're in, that you're not building a design system like any other brand.
Yeah.
We're not just in a category, we're in every category. And so finding something that wouldn't break as it traveled from retail to entertainment to health to gaming to streaming was probably one of the biggest creative challenges I've ever taken on. But and there were people that we had lots of hot debates on it, but there was a lot of openness because it felt needed. So it felt like it was time. I feel really fortunate that so much of our careers are right place, right time.
And
right
there's so many like physical, tangible touch points so frequently, at least in the US market. I think you guys have about 200 million Prime members. Maybe it's more now.
Oh, golly, really?
I notice when the boxes and the packaging changes, and it's not a real like conscious thing that I'm like worried about, but I'm like, oh, this is a lighter cardboard, container than the plastic bubble one. It's probably great names for these things, but I think it's a great example of like the brand showing up in a consistent way, having a real impact on customers.
Absolutely. Those assets, and even just putting a line on the box that's charming and that builds some brand love, like I'm just a box sitting on a step waiting to be open. Well, we take those encounters with customers that box will sit on someone's counter. Think about a media placement.
Or a stack of them.
It literally goes inside their house. And so we have had so much fun. Oh my God, Becky, look at that box. We've had a lot of fun with what we put on the outside of the boxes to just create that moment of a smile, which our brand is a smile. And so anytime we can find that moment of love or joy within the whole experience. But you're right, the surface areas are enormous. It's vans, it's boxes, it's a retail store, you name it. It's marketing, it's
crazy.
Product experiences, it's the UI on an Alexa screen. Like there's a lot of surface area to find things. And I think the rigidity that historically I had to unlearn some of my own rules about how strict you should be about a brand system, because there are so many different contexts with which it has to show up in that you have to have some flexibility. And there is a little bit of case by case to that. So I do think the fixed and flexible model has been our saving grace, because we do the things that we know are going to make it feel recognizable, but we understand if you're designing a piece of packaging versus designing the opening title to a video experience, it's going to be a very different piece, but you want them to feel like they're related and there's DNA there.
Oh, the tape. I love the tape. I don't know when you guys brought in that tape that's easy to rip, but it's like fantastic. Sorry, Kerrie. I'm getting real specific here.
Really in the weeds.
You know what? They're unconscious. It's even the sound of the box opening.
Yes. I opened one just before we got online.
There's glorious.
Such a glorious cue. I mean, that was so acute. We were the ice cream truck during COVID. Let's be honest. Like when people would see the Prime van drive down their street about to deliver the things that they couldn't go out and get, it was such a big relationship building moment with customers.
I'd love to know about your process when it comes to finding partners, external partners.
It's interesting. We get a lot of agencies do very deep, in-depth credentials presentations, and to me that's not where I like to spend the most time in that conversation, because we've done our homework. Like by the time we get to a meeting, we know all the things you've made, we know the work you've done. Like that level of inspection happens well before we're in the room. So to me, the thing I want to know is who I'm going to be working with and the people in the room. And that's where you don't want that. And I went through this a little bit in my agency life of the bait and switch, where the people in the room didn't end up being the people that you work with every day. So I really love when I meet the people that I'm going to see and that my teams will be working with every day. And so we often end up doing very well with the smaller, more boutique agencies, because you tend to have the founders in the room. You tend to have the founders very connected to the work. So you don't end up suddenly having a completely different crew of people when you get into the work versus the people that you met in the room and got inspired by and had that. And I know I've oversimplified it, because I totally get that agencies can't have their CCO on every single brand they work in. But I really want to make sure that there's a good rapport within the room, within the team. You can the chemistry piece of it is important, because we wouldn't be meeting if we didn't think you could do good work, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's everything, isn't it? People by people, you know. It sounds so simple, but it is what it is. Like you say, you know, the walking through the door is, we know you can do it. Do we want you to do it? Yeah.
Yeah. And we're quite an anti being sold to culture. Like the reason that the doc culture that Jeff created in the first place was to not allow people to talk their way and to sell and to derail a conversation with salesmanship, but to actually have a doc where you have to spend the first 20 minutes of a meeting reading a very well-written, articulate, concise setup of what the conversation is going to be about. And so it's a big simplifier. And so I think some of the times I've seen agencies not do well is when it feels like they're really selling to us rather than having a really strong, like undeniable strategy, undeniably smart way of doing it. And so really thinking it's the problem, the work, and then what they expect the outcome to be of that, but not to get too silly. And again, that's not unique to us. I think people in general don't like being heavily sold to. I don't think that's been a learning from me from sitting on the brand side, because I probably was selling a lot more back in the day and I had words put in my mouth. I would go to pitches and you'd do the rehearsal and they'd say, Joe, make sure you hit on this, 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 and this. Yeah. And you can feel it when
it feels planted sometimes.
It feels planted. It doesn't feel honest to the person that you're working with. And so I think that would be a great thing for agencies to like allow the people in the room to be the people that they are. And because you're buying into them, let the creatives be a little bit peculiar. I love when a creative's a bit nervous. I like when they're sweating. It means they care. And so this whole
they're just sweaty.
You better sweat. You better turn up the heat in that room.
Nervousness. When someone's voice wobbles, I'm like, they really care.
Oh, no, that makes me feel so insecure for them.
I feel good for them. I'm like, you're so invested in this.
I see a crawl streak in you, Joe.
I sounds no.
Make them sweat.
Making them suffer, making them sweat. No, but I do think there's something to be said for when someone's over polished. Yeah. Like, and maybe that's my Australianness of like, I remember coming to some of my first meetings in America where the interns would get up and present and I'm like, oh my gosh, the intern just presented better than most of us. And so we're in trouble because they're coming out of the university system. They've got that American confidence.
Yeah.
Australians tend
They've all gone to debating class. Yeah.
Yeah. And we love to make a mistake in a presentation and then use it as a bit to go to. Like Australians have a little bit of that shtick of like, it's not the fumbling, but we do like a little bit of imperfection in the way
it's colouring outside the lines, I think.
Yeah, it is. And then you get to America and like the 21-year-olds are really good. They could do a TED talk. And you're like, oh my gosh.
They don't sweat.
They don't sweat it. I don't know why I translate suffering and the sweating in the meeting to the caring about the work, but it often feels like those two things live together.
I think it's a good tie. I think it's a good connection.
I just think you sound cruel. I mean, end of story.
It's very possible.
Coming out of Cannes, I think we're exposed to a bunch of work. Do you feel like that's still the primary mechanism for spotting great talent and sort of like scouting?
Absolutely. I mean, I try and make sure my team's going out into summits and events and going and speaking at universities and meeting a lot of people. That networking part of it is still very important. I also there's a little bit of a meeting people through people. So that industry connections of trust of like a strong recommendation from someone whose opinion I trust goes a really long way as well. And so even when I came into this role and Simon Morris had the Chief Creative Officer role, he introduced me to a lot of his trusted people, which was Lucky Generals and David at Droger and like some agencies that he'd worked with a lot, and those became really great relationships for us, and Joint. And so they
like David. Who's that? David Droger? I've never heard of him.
No, David Colbus.
Oh, right.
Yes, before when he was leaving, we had a lot of British creative. Interestingly, a lot of our agencies.
You're welcome.
Yes, all UK. It's funny. Well, because we want, you know what, the creative departments are very diverse in British agencies because you get so many Europeans and Australians, and like you do get a really nice diverse population. And as a global brand, we're often looking for someone who can find agencies that can find those big, hairy, universal truths that can, and so an ad can run in a lot of different places. So we do tend to do well with UK. And maybe it's just a sensibility. Maybe it's because there's too many Australians here, but there is a European sensibility that does play well.
Yeah.
Yeah, culturally diverse, and then age diversity I find really important as well, because like I love a salty old writer with a young buck having an argument.
I love that word, salty.
And the writer that I'm talking about knows exactly who I'm talking about too. If he listens to this, probably won't listen to this because he's a salty old writer. But I do like.
He won't listen.
I do. We've lost a little bit of that reverence for experience and someone who's done it 20 different and the speed with which those people who have the muscle,
the shorthand,
the shorthand, and how they cut to it and how they ask the right questions really quickly, and you don't always have. I think actually, if anything, right now we're seeing lopsided towards more seasoned creatives and not as many juniors in the team, which is a shame because we do need to be building up that next generation. So we need everyone to have strong internship programs. In fact, one of our interns from last year just won a D&AD intern or junior student award. So like bringing interns in, bringing that younger next generation in and then mixing them. That was what my career was. I love that. I loved coming into like these creatives that had seen it all and then being.
So you work grandpa or something, right? The work grandpa.
It's
like you're working, you have like your work wife.
I'm drawn to the work grandpas. I think I was when I was young as well, just because like there is a lot to be learned, but also they often are wanting to learn from you because I came in with new skills that using computers and using programs that some of the older generation. It's the same thing that's happening with AI. You've got young bucks who are like deep in it, and then some of the older ones, we're putting that cross-pollination together where we've got younger folks training older folks on some new technology that maybe they're not rushing to embrace. And so it's really interesting to see how when you put those right combinations together, it makes everyone better.
I remember first time I tried to email a brief to the production and it wasn't pretty. Anyway, sorry, Kerrie, go back.
It wasn't pretty because it was a terrible
email?
You weren't
allowed to. No, you weren't allowed to email briefs. Come on.
Oh my
print
God, you're kidding.
Yeah.
Love
that. It had to be warm.
There was a template. You had to fill it out.
Oh, I see. I got it.
Need to be signed.
So listen, you mentioned next generation. When have you been really impressed and inspired by a junior member of the team?
I have not as young, but a creative on my team who was kind of the early adapter to AI, Mike Houston, who was amazing. He ran my social team. He's a young creative writer. And he was the first person sending me stuff and going, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this? And he was beyond excited and thrilled. It's just like it fired something off in his brain. And then we decided that we were going to make 50% of his job just being the AI contagion across the team. And then we decided needed to be 100% of his time. So we just kind of we just moved him, which is it's a similar migration to what I'm making. He wasn't doing the day-to-day creative work. His job was to be all over the technology and become this instigator. And then we built other people around him. He built a tribe. There were other instigators that we started going, well, there's someone in creative operations that's really into it. And there's someone in production. And we formed this small instigator group who educate everyone and float all boats and bring everyone up to speed. And they're really passionate, but they all took pretty significant steps from what their day-to-day job was just out of their curiosity. And it is the benefit of being somewhere like Amazon where we're so invested in what the future looks like and how we use AI in our day-to-day lives to be able to kind of carve out this team that is tiny. It's only a small handful of people, but they're having an enormous impact. And yeah, I'm always impressed when someone proactively just takes a completely different career choice.
I love that you were very much supporting from the inside and that you gave him wings to fly. You gave the whole team wings to fly.
Yeah, 100%. It is about valuing the skills they've always brought. But then I think as bosses, we're always responsible for upskilling everyone that works with us, right? And this is just another moment in that. How quickly can we make sure that, because those creatives just didn't exist, right? We were building a new version of creative in the early days, and now being able to say, well, now everyone, not just creative, campaign, media, we have everyone has kind of caught on, and we have whole workflows that are impacted by AI agents and skills that they all build themselves because they know how to.
And how are you thinking about AI holistically? The public perception right now of AI is really in the toilet. A lot of creative leaders tend to think that like the storytelling, the originality needs to come from the human, but there are a lot of things that AI can do to sort of support that.
Yeah, both things can be true. People are
Yeah.
important, AI is important, right? I don't think we have to make this choice between the two. I think it's an accelerant. It makes the parts of my job that I don't love doing much easier, right? And so it can shorthand that time so that I can actually spend more time storytelling, thinking about the emotion being more insightful. And so I think it's the people who are succeeding are really thinking about what their day looks like and the role of AI in their day to empower them to be better creatives and to have more time being creative, because that's also the thing that's been robbed over the last few years is like, I was talking to a creative about this the other day. Remember when we used to have like 4 weeks to edit, and you would go in and like start an edit and then you'd sleep on it for a couple of days and you'd come back and like you ate sushi every day in an edit suite and like you just got to live the edit. Now it's a couple of days, right? And so there's been so many parts of our process that have been truncated and sped up, which I know is a lot to do with tooling, but that don't give us enough time to like live and breathe and sharpen and edit and think about the work. The more you can shortcut and shorthand parts of the process that are operational and that can give you more time back to do that part of your job is a huge benefit. It's a huge benefit to me, and I know my teams feel that way as well. So it's a little bit like it is the adapting to computers. People say computers would be the death of our industry and the death of the craft, and it wasn't. It's just about how we choose to use them.
Talking about the work, because you were in Cannes this year, I've heard a lot of comment from various corners that it felt that the work wasn't necessarily central to what Cannes Lions was all about this year.
Yeah, I mean, we have to look outside our walls, and Cannes is and especially globally, because you see work at Cannes that you would never get visibility into. They're the ones that I love, where you walk around a corner, you're like, oh, like no, you walk the floor and you're blown away by every new piece of work that you uncover. So I do think it opens our minds globally and also to possibilities, and it gives you that, creators are a competitive bunch, whether we like to admit it or not. And so seeing I wish I'd made that work is really helpful. And so that's why we're bringing it back to make sure that people are seeing the work and appreciating the work and valuing what a really good brief can lead to and a really good insight can lead to. So that's super important. I think because I've done it a lot of times, I know how to navigate what to and what not to do. I actually bring my global leads together at Cannes. So business leaders and creative leaders come together. We have time where we all sit in a room together and we look at work together and we talk about kind of what is our OP1, what's our business plan for the next year. So we come together, we talked about that. We spend time together talking about the work because, as you can imagine, we don't do as much of that as I would have when I was agency side. So it becomes a bit of a global summit for us. And then I'm kind of selective with the things I want to go and do and turn. Like you can just spend your week running from repeating the same thing on different panel. Like I heard a lot of showing up authentically, right? You start hearing the same things on panels. You start hearing yourself say the same things on panels. You're like, I'm not sure how useful I am if someone came to 2 and I'm starting to talk about exactly the same things. So I did a few experiences and panels where I felt like I could add something, and went to a few things where it gave me some things to learn and that challenged me. And then we send a lot of business leaders to it because it's a lot of marketing meetings as well. It's a lot of ads. We have our ads present there. We're sending more people this year to Sikipe. I always pronounce that wrong.
Sikipe, yeah. I'll see you there.
See you there. Yes, I'm going this year, and I'm excited because I haven't been before. But I think for creatives, it's a lot about the craft and the making and the work, and I think they'll probably get a lot out of that as well. And so it's our first year sending a crew and being a sponsor and partner of that as well. So I like the idea of being able to spread our wings a bit more into some other shows.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Speaking of award shows and Susan again, she had an interesting POV that we should kill the case study. And maybe she wasn't that direct about it, but I think her point is
she did. That's exactly what she said.
There you go. Yeah. It's an interesting point. And she was basically like, we should just run the case study. But how do you feel about case studies sort of taking over our industry?
I 100% agree. Yeah. We should call them. And I actually think it gives an unfair advantage to the bigger shops too, because they can invest more money in making the case study fancy and like investing production dollars in building the case study versus that, especially in a moment where we're seeing a lot of small agencies and people starting their own thing. They're at such a disadvantage when they don't have crews of people and production services embedded within their organization to be able to do that. So I don't think it creates a fair playing field. I also think about the same creatives who build those case studies will be the first to tell you that a research environment is a foreign situation where we should never judge work on, right? Like if I do a research group, that research is like, it's not the right context. It's like it's an artificial environment. You can't take those verbatim seriously. And then we put these artificial videos that are an experience that doesn't reflect how people experience the work in the world. And we don't always let the truth get in the way of a good story, right? There's a lot of creativity in how we get to the point of it. And so I would, if we don't kill them, I'd love to see them much more templated, a little bit like my loop process of like, what was the problem? And then everyone make it even. Do it as a video, but answer 3 questions.
I absolutely agree with you that it's not, that's the problem, I think, is not even necessarily the money being spent on these things. But you're not receiving the same type of information across all case studies.
I think that's what the FEs do well, is that format. I mean, I know it's a cumbersome process for people, so I also feel for like how lean, smaller startup agencies have a hard time actually investing resources in writing a full case study because it's a whole thing. But at least it starts with a format that's more consistent. So you're getting a much more democratized version of like how the information's given to you. And maybe there's a happy medium between the two that we could find. And I also think the shows should be more consistent from a submission standpoint. Again, if we're really thinking about the moment we're in, every single show is requesting a different kind of format. You should be able to, in a world of AI, put your credits in once. They're shared amongst it. It doesn't mean you'd pay less. I think people would pay more because they're having to do less in the background because we spend a lot on production. Agencies spend a lot putting that case study together, writing it. But if it was a templated, I don't think people would balk at the money they spend on the entry. I think because they would be saving a huge amount of money on the actual production and resource time it takes to get the entry ready. So how do we standardize it?
And so many of these big holding companies and so forth, you know, they have whole divisions that are dedicated to awards and to submissions. It does disenfranchise a huge number of companies and agencies, especially exactly as you say, those that are independent, those that are smaller. And that is where the industry is these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And we'll see a reduction in entries as the evolution of the industry continues. So there does need to be an answer for that. Yeah.
Okay. Last question here. What are you trying to make Amazon mean that it doesn't quite mean yet?
I read this question a couple of times. I was debating how to answer it. And I think I'm just going to have to say, you'll see. I'm working on it.
Okay.
I can't tell you what I'm doing. No, but I'm excited. Like I am actually, that is the question I'm asking myself right now. And I'm really excited to be in a company that's really dynamic and I do have a lot of permission to like, what are we going to do? Where do we want to be? Who do we want to be? And we've done a lot of foundational work over the last few years that sets us up to be in a really good place to go, what is that next chapter?
Incredible.
Well,
we're watching.
Keep watching.
Tune in next week.
Watch this space.
Jo will have taken over the world. Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jo, for joining us on Second Wind. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It was really nice to see you guys. Thank you. Thanks for the interview. It was fun.
Thanks, Jo.
Bye.